Welcome to Influencing Magic, a Daps Magic podcast exploring how members of the Disney and creative communities became influential in their different disciplines.
We're interviewing and sharing experiences of an ever-growing influencing market, drawing from Daps Magic's nearly 20-year history within the Disney community. Come with us as we share what it takes to be a successful Disney influencer, both professionally and personally.
While seeking to influence kindness along the way, greetings, I'm Mr. Daps.
I'm Annie, and you're listening to episode 8 of Influencing Magic with Noah Sunday-Lefkowitz. Before we dive into the conversation with Noah, what's new with you, Mr. Daps?
We've got Daps Chat working. We're working on a third podcast now that I think I can safely say we're far enough along that it actually is going to exist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't want to introduce these things too early because then you're like,
a little premature.
Oh, it didn't work. But I feel like we're far enough along the way that we can say there is a third podcast coming, and with it will come the what we're calling right now the Daps Podcast Network.
I think it's great. It's a great idea.
We'll see how that plays out. But if you like A Galaxy Far, Far Away, you'll probably like this podcast, and that will be my tease for that. How about that?
Sounds good.
Your turn.
No pressure. Okay, I'm done. Well, it was my birthday. It was a great day. I got to do yoga in DCA, like right when
a really early
time, but it was like in the Redwood Creek Wilderness area. There's a platform up above where you can have basically there was like 5 or 6 of us in the class, and an instructor came in and she was great. We got snacks, we got water. They gave us towels and a yoga mat. It was really fun, and it was a really cool way to start my birthday day.
Awesome.
And then I had brunch, and it was great.
So more snacks.
Lots of, yeah.
I was like, Mike, I could pass on everything else, but I like the snack part.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
No, yeah, it was great. And then I kind of just did my thing for the rest of the week. So
very cool. All right. What's next?
Well, is there anything, are you guys doing anything else with the website and or Daps news stories that are new?
Always doing stuff on Daps. Like there's so much going on, especially with all of the big news stories happening with, well, everything going on in Florida, everything going on parks, experiences, products. There's a ton to cover. So we've been incredibly busy, and the site we continue to tweak away at and optimize, I guess is a good word, trying to make it faster, easier to navigate, all that fun stuff. So keep checking back because we have got stuff changing, and I think that's it.
Yeah, I also want to say that alongside this episode with Noah did a special video with us for our Daps Magic Patreon. So make sure that you stay tuned for that for info. And you should just go be a patron because it's awesome. And you can see Noah and all the other guests that we've had on.
And I feel like most of the funny things that happen end up on Patreon somehow.
It's because I don't want to say we don't care, but like we kind of let loose.
It's the behind the scenes. Like it's a good place to go. We do a behind the scenes show for Geeks Corner. That's a pre-show that's become pretty popular with the Patreons. And you get the clips that go with Influencing Magic that I think are hilarious because you get to see a different side of everybody that you normally see in front of the camera. Cool.
All right. So we're going to jump into the episode with Noah. Noah is a musical storyteller who has gained quite a bit of traction on TikTok over the last couple of years. He's composed musical theater that has been workshopped and showcased in both NYC and LA. He's also worked for Walt Disney Imagineering, where he coordinated voice casting, live entertainment, development, and more. And we're so excited to have him on the podcast.
Well, welcome, Noah. We're happy that you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Let's get started from the beginning. Tell us a little about your origin story.
Well, I grew up in Pennsylvania. I was part of a family that did our, annual pilgrimage to Walt Disney World. And I remember very vividly when I was 10, I was in the book section of a grocery store. And I remember reading a Walt Disney World trivia book, and it was talking about Pepper's ghost. And a light bulb went off when I was 10. And I was like, oh, like this is something that is built. This is something that is made. And I remember just from that point being like, oh, okay, that's what I'm going to be into now. And so from then on,
This is it. I peaked.
yeah, no, oh, I
10
started,
years old.
I started recreating special effects from the Haunted Mansion. I used to do claymation animation. I was featured on PBS Kids Go for it. And so I sculpted singing busts of me. I would sculpt my own head.
Does this exist somewhere?
Every version of it exists on my YouTube channel.
Oh,
In
Okay.
like the
good.
in like
pitch.
the archives of my YouTube channel, the 2008 one, the
Good.
2011 one, the 2012 one, and the 2018 one.
That's amazing.
Amazing.
I think the 2011 one are actually pumpkins. So the Haunted Mansion holiday pumpkin, you know?
I love it.
So that was cutout animation that I projected on a pumpkin. But the others were more my head, and
That's really
I
cool.
would film myself in a clamp,
Cool.
and I would record my own version of Grim Grinning Ghosts, and I would project it onto the bust, and the 12 trick-or-treaters were really impressed everywhere. And so I was really into all of that. I wrote to Imagineering when I was 14, and I was like, I know all about Disney. Can I become an Imagineer? And they gave me, they wrote back to me.
Nice.
A man named Dave Fisher, who's a story writer at Imagineering, wrote back to me and basically gave me the advice that I still give people now,
Cool.
which was a knowledge and passion for Disney is wonderful, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee you a job.
Mhm.
The thing that guarantees you a job, well, not guaranteed, but the thing
Right.
that
Helps
that
you.
that helps you
Yeah.
in a career at Imagineering is really to find the skill set that you think you are really good at. Like, find the thing, essentially just find what you're good at,
Mhm.
find your skills and work on that, and go to school for it and get jobs for it and do that,
Sure.
so that eventually you can do that at Imagineering. Because
Mhm.
loving Disney isn't a career unless you make one of it.
Yeah.
Like y'all.
Yeah,
Look at that. But it's really all about building this thing. And so I, apart from being a Disney family, I was very musical. I started singing and playing violin and guitar and stuff when I was 4, taught myself piano when I was 10. And so that's what I was really good at, and that's what I was really passionate about. So I just sort of dove really deeply into that as well. Ended up going to school for musical theater in Pennsylvania. And I originally went to school to be a performer. And when I got there, everybody was going to be a performer.
Mhm.
And I said, okay, I need to be special.
Yeah.
I need to do something
Yes.
to set myself apart. And so I started writing musical theater just as a way to sort of get myself known throughout a class of
Right.
really talented people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my first show was actually about the relationship between Walt and Roy Disney,
Of
Aw.
course.
to kind of sort of combine the things that I love.
Uh-huh.
And it was so fun because I didn't know any better. You know, I just was like, I'm gonna write a full musical. You know, it's not like people start with 20-minute musical, 3-person cast. Nah, I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I started writing this show and got it workshopped a few times in school. Ended up doing the college program when I was a junior. I was parade audience control on Main Street in Magic Kingdom. And I loved it because I just got to talk to people all day.
Mhm.
I closed Wishes and opened Happily Ever
Aw.
After. The first opening
Yeah.
of Happily Ever
That's
After.
awesome.
That was my last week of work. So as if it wasn't emotional enough.
Wow.
Aw.
But I did that, went back to school, and then my senior year, right as I was graduating, I was part of the Walt Disney Imaginations competition. My friend had shown me that. I had never heard of it before. But it's essentially Imagineering puts out a prompt
Mhm.
for college students to create a theoretical immersive experience. And he and I are both theater people. I'm a performer writer. He's a designer. And we were a mighty team of 2. And long story short, out of the 270 something teams, we were chosen in the top 6.
Wow.
And so Disney flew us out to here, into Southern California, for a week to pitch our ideas and to pitch ourselves and to get tours of these things that I had dreamed of. You know, I mean, I had never, I'm giving you the long answer of
It's
who
okay.
am I.
This is
Very
great.
good.
But growing up in Pennsylvania, I had gone to Florida annually, but California and Disneyland was like, I guess I just like it's out there. It's another world. I had never even assumed that I could like make that pilgrimage. So suddenly it was there. I was there for a week and being shown around all these cool things, and it was amazing.
Did you get to go to Disneyland too, or was
Oh
it?
yeah,
Okay.
I got it. The Imaginations. I don't know if it's come out yet post COVID.
Yeah.
I hope it continues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're so good to these college students.
That's
We got
cool.
Imagineering, the animation studios, the new animation studios, the old animation studios,
Yeah.
Disneyland, DC. Like we got to see everything. And we
Wow.
got to pitch ourselves as well, because it's the Imaginations competition is really kind of searching for new talent.
Right.
Talent. Yeah.
And so, long story short, I got an interview and ended up getting an internship with the Disneyland portfolio as a producer intern. And I went to theater school, so I didn't know what that meant, because producing in my brain means money, coming from the theater world.
Yeah.
And it was so exciting for that not to be what it was.
Yeah.
I moved out here for the internship in August of 2018 and worked on Pixar Pier and Mickey Minnie's Runaway Railway that finally opened.
I know.
5 years after my involvement with it,
Wow.
which was really exciting. A few other projects that I will never be able to disclose. And that internship turned into a year-long internship that eventually turned into me getting hired full-time, not in the department I was in, but a 50-50 split between live entertainment development, in which I helped the executive creative director develop live entertainment for the Marvel portfolio. So I worked on a lot of the live entertainment for Avengers Campus, both here and in Paris. And then in the afternoons, I worked in the casting department. And before me, the casting department was one guy. So now when I joined, it was two guys.
Double.
And so we got to work with all of these amazing voice actors that, as a performer, I had always admired and idolized. And, you know, getting to work with Corey Burton and Jim Cummings and, you know, all these people who are staples in the parks, specifically like the parks people, was so cool. And I did that until the mass COVID layoffs in 2020. And I think I had really committed to my job at Imagineering, but I always knew that I wanted to move into music. You know, one of my life goals is to write music for the Disney parks.
Yeah.
As sort of a high level combination of everything that I do. And I realized that even though I had told a lot of people that I performed and wrote, I had not really a lot to show for it. And now we're all stuck in our houses for the time being.
Which is true, because until the pandemic, I didn't even realize that we had a musical connection.
Right.
We talked other stuff.
Yeah.
For a couple of years.
Yeah. Well, it's because, you know, I'm very grateful that I did other cool stuff that was relevant to a lot of, you know, people that I admired. But music was really where I wanted to get to.
Yeah.
And so for better or for worse, I realized, you know, oh, this might be a good time since we're all stuck here.
The passion projects surfaced for so many people.
To just put stuff online so that I can just prove to people that I can do it. You know, that the whole thing, there's so much minimizing of risk when it comes to working in the entertainment industry, particularly for a big company like Disney. So that if I can minimize risk by just putting as many examples as I can online to say, oh, you want an arrangement of pre-existing stuff? I've got 10 examples here. You want my musical theater performance? Here's 25. And you want my, you know, I'd love to write original music. Here's 15 things I've written that are kind of in a Disney style. And so I started putting stuff online, not really to gain an audience of any kind, but to just build a living, breathing resume to showcase everything that I can do. And one of my mentors, Richard Kraft, who is a phenomenal agent in the business. He's Alan Menken's agent, Danny Elfman's agent.
No big deal. It's fine.
I have the great fortune of calling him a mentor and a friend. And a big thesis of his when creating work that the goal is to be seen by people, is to create something new based on something that already exists. Richard has had phenomenal success at the Hollywood Bowl, directing shows like The Little Mermaid, Live in Concert, Beauty and the Beast, La La Land, Willy Wonka, things like that, where he takes a beloved thing and reinvents it and does something new. And he does it time and time again with everything he works on. And so we sort of brainstormed along with Taryn, my girlfriend, to talk about really how I could sort of make an impact in the joint theater and Disney audiences. And it just so happened there was am I allowed to talk about other Disney people?
Yeah,
absolutely.
There was a Defunct Land charity auction. And I had written medleys casually in the past. The first standing ovation I ever got was in 8th grade. I did an Elton John medley at the spring concert. And so Taryn convinced me to write a Disney Parks medley for that. And it ended up getting great reactions. I ended up winning that thing. And between Taryn and Richard, they were both like, oh, this is that thing. Yeah. This is that thing that you are very good at, that sort of can combine everything that I'm good at. And so I started thinking about what I would want to put out there. And I think medleys are not something that I invented. They exist, but it's a lot of like princess medleys or hero medleys or sidekick medleys. And it's all been done. What I really wanted to do was showcase specifically what I was passionate about and really nerdy about, which was all of these deep dive park songs, maybe songs that were cut from movies or songs from movies that nobody watched. I love Home on the Range. And so I started coming up with, hey, listen, I love Home on the Range. Don't get me started.
Fine. It's fine.
It's a joy. It's a joy. Alan Menken calls it that cow movie. And so I started coming up with these medleys that were a bit more specific. Like I did obscure Disney songs A to Z, which that was the first one that really sort of blew up. And what led me to learn that, specificity is universal here, where I will sing stuff either from my childhood that people will love, or stuff that maybe even I didn't know, but there's definitely the first time I sung the Goodbye song from Bear in the Big Blue House in that medley, the community that I had formed blew up, and it was like, oh, like I touched a nerve. And so it really, all the medleys since then have been trying to just be very specific. Old school Epcot music is so great.
It's
and there's
huge
such
right now.
Those fans who love this specific stuff are so fervent that if I can tap into something like that, if I can use my skill, my unique ability to showcase something that we all love, I think it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
Yes.
And so I've now been doing this for over a year on the TikTok, and I've had a great time.
When you were talking about, taking something that you love, combining it with other things that you're good at, and then finding those specific things that work with your specific audience, it's super interesting because we just released a podcast about finding your niche and talking about like taking the things that you love, bringing it down, and then cutting it down even further and really honing in and developing that.
Yeah.
So you are like the perfect example.
Oh, thank you.
So plug, go
like
listen to the last podcast.
Well, I think that's such a big thing because, and I mentioned it earlier, I think so many people, rightly so, are like, oh, I am so passionate about a certain thing. And it's like, that's amazing. What can you do with it? What do you have to offer this community? Whether it's somebody like me that I am very passionate about Disney, but what I'm good at is music. Yeah. And so let me combine that stuff. You guys do this phenomenally well, where you're able to do all of this. Like there's a setup, there's a way to connect with an audience, there's a way to do it consistently.
We're trying.
I mean, that's a thing. I mean, not everybody can do that, and it's it's great to see different voices do stuff like that.
So, what were some of the challenges along the way? Because this clearly wasn't just a B, C, D, E, F, G. Look at here.
Sure. Well, I learned very quickly, and this I give Richard credit for his do something new with something pre-existing, is it's very hard to get people on the internet to care about new work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And my ultimate goal is to write new work, as I love performing Disney songs that already exist, but the goal is to write some Disney songs of my own before I pass on to the ether of Disney history here. And so it really, if I was, a secondary goal would be to find an audience for my own work.
Sure.
And so a lot of it was sort of finding that line between showcasing new stuff, showcasing stuff that I know people like, taking something that people like and doing something new with it, so that I can kind of sort of reel them in. And once I get people like, oh, you love this Disney music, well, maybe you might like this Disney inspired thing. And I do like one of the things I'm doing right now is a great dream of mine is to write a theme song and anthem for a fireworks.
I was going to ask you about this, so this is great.
Yeah, and that's something I've wanted to do my whole life. And then, got to work wishes and happily ever after. Like, it's very cemented in my brain. And I've been fortunate to talk to some people and befriend some people who have had the opportunity to write parades and fireworks shows. And so in practicing what I'm preaching of, like, how can I use what I'm good at to do it, I thought, well, I'm just going to write one. I'm just going to write a fireworks song as a proof of concept that I can do it. There's no better way to say, hey, I can write a fireworks show, to be like, hey, I've already written a fireworks show.
Yeah.
Like, not in any assumption that that'll be used. Like, it won't. It's a passion project for me, but it's really to be like, that's what I want to do. Let me just do it.
Sure.
What is the worst that can happen? The worst thing is that nobody's going to see it.
Yeah.
I know that I am a perfectionist enough to put the time and the effort into it to make what I think is a high quality product.
Yeah.
So the worst thing that can do is just nobody can see it. And so you talk about the struggles is it's really trying to showcase something like that in a way that people care about. I remember in the beginning, you guys will not be talking at all in this podcast.
No,
I swear.
We're soaking it all in. It's good.
When I first...
Your name is on the podcast, not ours.
Oh, well. When I first started doing the medleys, I joined TikTok specifically to put these medleys on. I was not well versed in this platform, and so I learned very quickly that the first 5 seconds of a video really make or break audience retention. And I remember my third medley was an Epcot medley, and I started with an instrumental version of New Horizons. If you can dream it, then you can do it. No, you don't start with an instrumental because nobody cares about some dude playing piano. So since then, all of my medleys have started with like, it all starts with me singing. But it's just those things that you learn where I was like, man, nobody watched that video. Why?
Yeah.
I know it's not bad. So what are the tactics here?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the last year and a half has been, okay, well, how can I get people's interest?
Right.
How can I keep people's? I think that's why the medleys work, is because TikTok is very, very fast.
Yeah.
And medleys are like, oh, you want this song? I got it. You want this song? I got it. You want
Exactly.
It's like the songs are like 5 seconds maybe a piece. The medleys have 12 to 20 songs to kind of. The Phineas and Ferb medley I just did had, I think, 27 songs in 2.5 minutes.
Do you feel like when you're composing this kind of stuff and you are doing it for the intent of social media and a specific audience, which is different than if you were doing a concert version of this, do you find that it is really like it's messing with the flow of what you're trying to do, or do you feel like things get cut and it's not exactly what you want as a whole?
Things always get cut, but I tend to write and then just cut and cut and cut and cut,
Okay.
because there's a lot I want to say. There's a lot of songs that I want to show.
Right.
And yeah, it is different than if I did it in a concert, because a lot of the medleys are, I think all the medleys are 1 to 3 minutes long.
Yeah.
And that's a specific
really short.
format for social media, that if I was doing
It's
a
not gonna
concert,
fill up a concert.
right?
Yeah.
You do a concert of all the medleys, it's like 20 minutes. You know, it's like, this is my body of work right here. You know, this is the last 2 years, 20 minutes.
Is that so? Okay, so you have a whole repertoire of that for social media.
Yeah.
But then you're saying that you're putting stuff online as like, hey, this is a really cool musical portfolio. If you're asking for this, hey, I have it right here. Do you have separate versions of them?
The medleys specifically, I don't, because I feel like they are so specific to the social media stuff.
Yeah.
The original medley the second medley, not the Defunct Land one, but the obscure Disney A to Z, that one was actually 6 minutes. And that was before TikTok added the 10-minute mark.
Yeah.
So it was actually broken up into 2
I remember that.
videos. And videos, do we still call them videos?
Sure,
I
why
think
not?
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was 2. It was like
Technically.
a double cassette, like 2 VHSs. You had to take the first one out and put the second one in to see the second half of the medley. And people don't like going to part 2s, I've learned.
Yeah.
And so the medleys, I think I would like to do maybe a long one, but I feel like it would have to be like a mega medley. I think I would like take something like an Epcot medley, and I would just take each song and just play more of it.
Yeah.
You know, I
that
think,
would make
you know,
sense.
go from like a 5-second thing to a 20-second thing, and make it from a 3-minute song to a 10-minute song. But I've actually been surprisingly content to make these short form things, because I feel like it's so intentional for this platform.
Yeah.
You know, I used to make stuff on YouTube that nobody has watched.
We tried.
Hey, and YouTube is such a different beast. Even now, you know, now it's long form. You know, I remember when YouTube had a time cap of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Me too.
And yeah, you remember
You
that?
could get the extra 59 seconds.
Yeah.
I think I was stuck at like 8 minutes for a long time.
Yeah.
And so I think that really informs what you make. And I try and have that be an asset rather than something to fight against. You know, it's
a really good way to think about it, though.
It's fun to see how much I can squeeze into a minute and a half. Like, I know my goal for the medleys is usually 2 to 3 minutes, but I know that if I can get it below 1 minute and 30 seconds, it'll become an Instagram reel.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's really fun to sort of play around with, oh, can I just speed it up a little? Can I?
So can you talk about?
If you can get it under a minute, it can go on to
It can then
shorts.
be a YouTube
right?
short,
Yeah.
which,
So talk about how the limitations actually inspire creativity, because I think you're hitting on something that we didn't even tend to hit on. But I think so often in so many different stories, ours included, that the limitations have really led to something better than we could have hoped for if we could do the full medley.
Well, I think in general, rules and guidelines pave the way for more decisive creativity. I know when I want to write a song and it's just like, let's write a song today, I hate that. But if it's like, oh, I want to write a song in this style for this, this sort of, this vibe, this topic, suddenly when there are guardrails, it provides context that makes it easier to start. You know, if you want, you know, if I say I'm going to write a musical theater song, well, there are certain types of musical theater. Is it I Want song? Is it like, you know, villain song? Like there are certain archetypes of songs that I can say, oh, you know, is it a standalone song? Is it part of a larger show? Or are you writing a large show? and things like with even with social media, it's like, okay, well, what's the point? What's the end goal? Is the end goal to showcase me? Is the end goal to showcase the topic or the context? I think if you can put those guidelines up, it gives you context and it allows. I'm stopping myself
It's okay.
to say, I think in all art, the worst thing you can do is be generic or general. And that is not a unique thought. That you can trace that back to anywhere. But I've done a lot of talks about musical theater writing and, referencing, the greats of, Sondheim and every Lin-Manuel and all these, the big people. You know where you are.
Insert list.
Yeah. And I always go back to that intention of you just need a very specific intention, no matter what you're going to be putting out. And the intention could be, I'm just doing this for fun.
Yeah.
And that even informs the choices you make, because that leads you to not have to worry about an audience or not have to worry about the length of a thing for a certain platform
you're going to put in.
Right.
Yeah.
Like whatever, as long as you can start making decisions, as long as whatever those decisions are, I think it really, that is a way that you can start strong on a project, is if you can say, what is the intention of this project? And then you have a goal. Suddenly you have a North Star that you can say, are the decisions I'm making helping me to get there? And that's also career advice that I'm trying to take right now is in music, it's a very gig based, especially now after, I worked in an office for a few years at Imagineering, and that's very secure. Secure. But now in the sort of gig based world, it, there is a mindset where you want to take everything. And of course you should start off by being as helpful as you can and making as much as you can. But I'm fortunate, by the way, to feel as though I'm at a point where now I can say, okay, well, will this job help me reach a goal that I have? I'm trying to get more actively into my voiceover career. It's something that I've done for a while, but something I've done a little more casually than I've liked. And so now it's like, oh, well, let me put more time and effort into that, because that will more directly impact something. Maybe I won't take a piano bar gig this week because I'm going to focus on sending in auditions, because I have that specific goal. There's a micro and macro answer to your question.
It was great.
Thank you.
I was gonna let you go.
Okay. I was looking at our other questions because we went on that amazing talk about like fitting it. What you just said.
Yeah.
Let's ask this question. So we hit kind of the struggles that you face from the medium. But there's always the internal struggles too. Like you're going along, you start this road when you're 10 years old, and now however many years later, you're at a completely different
3
place.
years later.
Yes, exactly. Than I think you ever would have imagined. And just from the time I've known you, which is 5 years? You've definitely had highs and lows that we've chatted about.
Oh, sure.
Can you talk about some of the highs and lows and how you have continued to move forward through those?
Yeah.
Because that is something I think I've observed in you, is even when you're at your lows, you're like, I'm here, but I'm still going somewhere.
Well, first of all, that's very kind. It's easy to look back in retrospect and be like, he had a plan. Like
or from the outside.
Right. No, but I appreciate that. And I think, we had this little pandemic, which upended everybody's life.
Literally everybody.
And the weird thing about that was I was an Imagineer at 23 years old. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Just awesome.
Like and all the while I was at Imagineering, I was like, why am I here? I sing. That's what I do. Like one of these days, people are going to realize that I don't belong here. I give my friend Andrew an incredible amount of credit for bringing me onto the Imaginations competition, which ultimately led to this opportunity. Because I mean, who knows if I would have been able to get there myself. But I didn't expect to be at Imagineering. I didn't expect to be on this coast. I assumed that I would have graduated and moved to New York because I was 2 hours away from New York.
That's what you do.
And that's what you do.
Yeah,
that's what you do. I had no plan to do it. I had nothing in line, nothing in place. I was really flying by the seat of my pants here. And I moved out here, and it was strange. I mean, in a good way. Obviously, I was coming out to a dream job, but also, you know, I talk about, like, I sing. What was my role here? And a lot of what I experienced at Imagineering was finding how I can fit and how I could not, because I am obviously very passionate about the product. I am tremendously into themed entertainment, clearly. But it was a bit of a search to say, okay, well, how can I find a role here that I am equally as passionate about my piece of creating the product as well as the final product itself? Because, you know, as much as I had an incredible time, you know, I don't want to necessarily be a coordinator my whole life, you know, and I am grateful for it, but it was a lot of what I did in Imagineering was getting a lot of coffee with people to just be like, where can I fit here? You know, learning about everybody here. And eventually, when I got laid off with everybody else during the COVID layoffs, it was obviously very hard because I felt like I had just sort of found my footing in the casting department, in live entertainment. You know, when I moved into live entertainment, it was all these theater people. I'm like, oh, there they are. Like, yes, I found them. And it was very familial.
Usually they're not that hard to find.
Right. They were over in another building. And it was great. And so I had felt like, oh, the rug had just been pulled out from under me.
Yeah.
Now what? Because it's not easy to get to Imagineering, especially when you're a singer. And so it was really like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
You know, I had worked very hard to get to where I was. I built a big community of people, and suddenly it had been taken away from me and a whole swath of other people.
Right.
But in that time, it sort of led me to think about, okay, well, what do I want to do at Imagineering? What is the ultimate goal? Why do I want to be there? Well, like I said before here, the end goal is really to write music for the parks. If I could have music that I write impact people in an emotional way with a fireworks show or a ride or a stage show or background music, doesn't matter. And you realize that that's not an internal job. There's no full-time music writer. You know, the Sherman Brothers had created a great gig and they left, and that position never got filled.
Yeah.
And so specifically in terms of music, what happens is you get brought in. You are hired.
Like a contract.
Right. It's a contract gig. Very cut and dry, you know. And so, you know, a lot of that work is, oh, well, you need to build a repertoire of work, and, you know, both personally and professionally, so that you can be brought in with minimal risk, like I talked about, or you've been proven to have a good track record. And so it took me a while to understand that it was a good thing to not be there. But I think it was, because now I'm pursuing that more directly. Like I was talking about earlier, is finding a way to follow those passions and those goals, because now I'm at a point where I can put my work out there to eventually be hopefully brought in.
Yeah.
You know, that is how it works. You know, I sat down with I forget his exact title, one of the heads of music at Imagineering, and I was like, well, how do you right for Imagineering because there is no, day job at working
Right,
there.
where
I
I come
didn't
from.
expect it. And he was like, well, the 3 attractions that we have brought in original composers for have been Soarin', Mystic Manor, and Voyage of Sinbad. So we brought in Jerry Goldsmith, Alan Menken, and Danny Elfman. So get to that point,
Wow.
and we will bring you in to write music. And so, of course, there are
Like the Buddy Bakers of the world. Yeah.
right, and there are level. Not
Yes.
everything is Mystic Manor. Sometimes it's Toontown background music.
Yeah.
But that really sort of I've kept that in my brain
Well, and
of
then thinking like Michael Giacchino in Space
Right.
Mountain, like
Yeah.
that.
right. But
Yeah.
it's all that thing of to work
right.
at Imagineering, you have to work outside of Imagineering.
Mhm.
And that I've heard that across the board,
Yeah.
and so that's really sort of I refocused, and I've been excited about that refocusing
Yeah.
because it actually gets me to that dream more directly than if I were to stay in the company.
Mhm.
Because as companies are, not Disney specifically, but just any company, if you're a coordinator, you're seen as a coordinator.
Mhm.
And sometimes, you can move up to project manager, but like I said, that's not really what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So now I have this opportunity to reinvent myself. And I've had this incredible good fortune to now see people's perception of me change.
Mhm.
That I have had bosses and coworkers and people at Imagineering who didn't know that I did
Right.
music now say, oh, we played your medley in a staff meeting, and like this is really cool. Like how is the music going? Like
Mhm.
that. They didn't even know I was
Yeah.
a musician because that's
And-
not
Yeah.
what I was doing.
And how cool to have those relationships already built up, even if it was something that was just like a fleeting moment of your life, of your working history.
Yeah.
And then to have that, obviously it's already affecting what you're doing.
Thank
And
you.
how cool to be able to like guess and see what happens in your future with those contacts that you've built up at Imagineering.
I will give a slight name drop.
Okay, drop it.
During my internship, I had the good fortune to work on a project with Joe Rohde almost every day for 9 months. And he comes from a theater background. I come from a theater background. So we developed
That's
sort
not
of
a little name drop. Like that's
No, he says
like
slight. He says slight.
Yeah. And so we developed sort of, we're amiable together. I would like to call him a friend. And I saw him after, of course, 2 years of the world shutting down. I saw him at the expo, the D23 expo. And he was like, I see your medleys. And I'm like, that's cool, man.
That is cool.
Like the fact that not only you recognize your little intern friend, but that what I do.
That is
and
Yeah.
like
awesome.
that's, I like I said, I sat down with a lot of people. And I always tell people, get coffee
yeah,
with everybody.
literally, yes.
Like my friends at Imagineering would and continue to still make fun of me because I would get coffee with 2 or 3 people a week. And so my friends would just constantly see me at the Starbucks at Imagineering.
Like, do you do anything?
And like that's your job. You get paid to sit and buy middle-aged people coffee every day and be like, what's your career like? But I did it in such a genuine way that I'm just clearly very passionate about this industry.
Yeah.
And I just want to know how you got to where you are, because clearly the royal you would imagine you are all very successful and very knowledgeable about what you do.
Mhm.
How'd you do that? And if you need anything, I'm here. Like to just do it in a genuine
Yeah.
way. You can always tell when people are ladder climbing.
Yeah.
And so I never wanted to be that. I always took a genuine interest in these people. And as a byproduct of that, I've created this really wonderfully supportive network of people who not only care about me and what I do, but also many people are in the industry and we could work together at some point. And
Yeah.
that's cool.
and have
That's
fun doing it.
really cool.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna drill down on this just a little bit and go back a little bit.
that's fine.
You're
I'm all over the place.
so
Rein
you
me
just
in.
got let go by. Let's go to the dark point.
Sure.
You're
I'm gonna.
That's Mr. Daps'
What did you
favorite
do?
point, the dark point.
which is not, but like, what was the mind? Like, did you have like a
Sorry.
you decided to make a decision of like, hey, I'm going to do this instead of just sit here and be sad? Or like, what was that? Because there had to be a trigger pulled at some level somewhere that was like, hey, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm going to go. Like, what was your mind process, maybe, is the question I'm asking, of like, how do you decide when things don't go right that you're still moving forward?
Well, there was, you talk about the dark time. I can point to very specifically when that was of the last like 2 months of 2020, because not only did I and a bajillion other people get let go, but also my musical theater writing partner of 6 years sort of fell off the face of the earth. And for better or for worse, we had written exclusively together, and so we're really close. And when somebody like that, we had, you know, goals of writing together as a career, you know, in musical theater. We wrote the Disney show in college and things like that. And so, you know, it was this really terrible time of losing a friend and a professional collaborator who almost all of my public work was written with.
Yeah. And
losing a dream job. And it sort of is it became really the question of like, okay, well, who am I if I now am, because I can't really, you know, if you talk about the music industry, there's only so much you can prove when you're showing collaborative work,
right,
when hiring yourself. Because when you show collaborative work, especially when it was like what she and I had done, we collaborated on both music and lyrics. So there's not a clear, you know, only listen to the music in this song.
Right.
I did that, they did the other thing. It was very homogenous. And so now all of the stuff that I've worked on, that is online, that I'm really proud of, and still am, by the way. It's some of the best music I think I've ever been involved with still. But all of that stuff is now suddenly less useful.
Right.
And I now don't have this Imagineering job. And so a lot of putting my stuff online was me saying like, I've got to develop an identity again. You know, I've got to develop my voice, because now no longer are we looking for jobs together. And so it would be rude or, you know, sneaky of me to say that I wrote that.
Right.
You know, of course I must give credit for all of that. And so it all was just like, who am I? If I just lost my professional identity in two aspects,
right?
Yeah.
Both in my musical theater career and in my themed entertainment career.
And what do you think it is that was in you that you're like, I am going to be this, versus, all right, that was a nice try, you know, like, because there's always that.
Well, that voice does
choice.
pop up,
right?
You know, it would be foolish to say like, oh, and then I turned around and pulled up my bootstraps and America,
right.
And so, I mean, a lot of it was talking with Taryn and with Richard and about, you know, two people that I trust, to say, okay, well, what is the next step now that this rug has been pulled out from under me in two avenues? The slate's kind of clean. What are your dreams?
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, well,
It's a chance for a brand new, fresh start.
Yeah, and it's, you know, I still want to work in themed entertainment. I still want to work in musical theater. The Imagineering thing was kind of a fluke.
Was it though?
Humor me.
Okay.
It was unexpected.
Okay.
I never expected to be in an office ever. Now I'm not anymore. I guess this is the time to focus on the music career. You know, because like we said, like I was at Imagineering, putting my whole heart into Imagineering, and I really didn't do much music. Nobody knew.
No.
Nobody knew. And suddenly it was an opportunity to get back to as that like 10-year-old, like, oh, I'm going to do this. And so it's, you know, I hate being like, oh, it was a blessing in the skies, because it was hard.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it's going to lead to.
But it was a great opportunity to get back to the thing I was really wanting to do, because I think so many people can fall into safety or security, especially at a really seductive job like Imagineering, which is incredible.
Literally a whole lifestyle. It's not just a job. It's not like you become
which was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, that really wasn't the goal. You know, I talked to the casting director, who is Brian, who's still a wonderful friend of mine, and he was like, yeah, this is the time for you to go and do those things. You know, and you know, I've said maybe when I'm 45, I would love to go back to Imagineering as a music producer and work on shows and help people who are my age now do what I'm hoping to do in this decade. And really kind of get back to Imagineering with this knowledge and with this experience, and sort of do a nice little wrap up of my career in the last maybe 10, 15 years as a music producer at Imagineering, having now hopefully already done the actual music industry thing.
Which I have no doubt that could happen. And I love listening to, we just heard your story, same story, in two completely different ways. So the first time through,
it's true.
First time through, it's A to B to C to D, work with Richard Kraft, awesome. And I love that when you dig into it a little bit, there was the not so awesome part that you were surrounded by awesome people, that at the end of the story, this portion of where we're looking back on the story, you're like, oh, that actually ended up being a good thing, even though it was really hard in the moment.
Oh,
and I think a lot of people, as they're getting started with any type of career on anything, forget that part of there's always the rocky parts. And if you surround yourself with awesome people, like that's every musical and really awesome movie and book, I feel like, is like, oh, let's go, Sam.
Right.
But like, there's those people that help you through those rocky times. And I think that's such a good lesson to take from your story, as we're thinking, you know, for people that want to follow in your footsteps and do something similar but different, I assume. Because I feel like actually we're all similar in this regard of we have very unique life paths that most
this is so weird.
This
is so strange.
They all do this.
There's nobody that had that straight path to whatever it wanted to be. You know, like maybe they want to be a banker or something, and you just
is fine.
It is.
Couldn't be me, but power to you.
But like for some roles, there's a very definitive, I do this type of school, I do this type of internship, I work there in the summer, and now I have a job, and then I've got stability for the next 30 years. And that's a that's
power to them.
And like
that's so much less stress. It's a very,
I've got family members that was their dream, and they loved it, and they owned boats and all this stuff on the side because they could. And you know, that's a different path, and that's fantastic. But I love hearing your path too, because I think in some ways the creative path is sometimes harder to define and to follow, because you just don't know, like, by the nature of it, you just don't know what it's going to look like.
Well, especially from having done a brief stint in the corporate environment, suddenly it's going back to the gig-based
square one.
Well, you have weeks that are slow and weeks that are really busy, and you just sort of have to trust. You know, you just have to be active in pursuing those things. And you know, like I said, it's been like a year and a half, and slowly people have reached out to me from my work on the internet, which I know, like, I'm the first generation that like grew up with the internet, but it's still weird to be oh,
this is
there's a career here. You know, and TikTok is not the end goal, you know, but
it's a good
platform to showcase what I can do. And you know, I've talked about, you know, minimizing risk and showing and things like The other thing that I didn't mention is I can now say, well, there's also an audience for this. There is an audience for this stuff that I make, whether it's music or really specific Disney history stuff. You know, there's not only are there examples of my work as a professional musician, but the audience
Resonates.
it resonates.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the specificity is universal of, here's 10 medleys that I did and people like them. Like that's
Mhm.
also cool.
Yeah.
It's another thing to put things online.
And they share too.
Right.
Like when you look
Yeah,
at
it's
your,
really
your
cool.
analytics, like there's probably a huge chunk of it of like, hey, this is being sent out,
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
It's just really cool because there's always, there is the world in which you put things online and 12 people see them,
Mhm.
and that's fine. Maybe that's a different goal, but
Or a starting place.
And I think the way I've been able to do this is the sort of like show business is 10% show, 90% business.
Yeah.
Is just trying to be my own promoter.
Mhm.
And really trying to get in front of the right people with something to offer,
Yeah.
to try and somebody said this to me in my career. I don't remember who, but it's to always pose yourself as a solution to somebody else's
absolutely.
problem. If not to just say like, I'm a musician, hire me to write a song, but it's like, oh, if you need somebody to sing vocals on your demo, if you need somebody to edit in a pinch, if you need some, and maybe maybe the first job that person comes to you with is not the dream job, but you're working with the person you admire,
Mhm.
and suddenly they trust you now, and suddenly they are coming to you, and it is this building block thing of it goes back to just relationships.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's I like people. That's
Yeah.
that's the only way I've been able to
Shocking.
survive out
I'm
here.
so surprised.
What you see? I like to talk to people. That
I can remember distinctly the first day we met. Like we talked forever, in a very cold backyard.
Did he buy you coffee?
That's right.
No, we had. I don't
You
remember
didn't
what
give
we
him-
had. We had other drinks. It was fine.
Oh sure.
But
You didn't get
so
coffee with Mr. Daps?
let's. I
We
don't know
need
if we
to.
ever have,
I don't think we actually. I don't
Which
think
is
we
very
ever
rare.
have.
We're gonna do it now.
We find ourselves at things.
Yes, we bump into each other all the time.
Yeah.
So for an aspiring creative, which I think is a good definition of your career,
Sure.
what are 3 tips you'd be like, hey, as you're plotting where you want to go, keep these things in mind? What would you say?
Well, the first thing is talk to everybody
Mhm.
and assume that everybody has something of value to be learned.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Assume that you will be smarter from every person that you talk to. That's what I did at Imagineering.
Love it.
That's what I do now.
It's like the prime example of that.
Yeah,
too. Oh my
because I
gosh.
know people who are tremendously talented, who this is not necessarily a bad thing, but they're a bit more reclusive,
Mhm.
and it's harder.
Yeah.
It's harder when it is easier. Let me reframe it as a positive. A network of people can do nothing but benefit. You don't burn bridges.
Yeah.
You just talk to people and assume there's something of value in everybody, and that there's nothing that can go wrong from that.
Right.
2, I feel like anything I
was
have to
good.
say.
That's good.
Thank you. 2, I think, would be to find that balance of making the thing and making sure that people see the thing.
Yeah.
I think that people can fall into a rabbit hole of one or the other, where some people create amazing things that just never get seen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that sucks because you find them and you're like, how does nobody love this?
Mhm.
Or the opposite, where the promotion of yourself suddenly overtakes the thing itself,
Mhm.
and suddenly you are just promoting some sort of abstract, amorphous, like,
It's almost like a caricature of what
yeah,
could
like
really
Yeah.
like you're becoming the like Kardashians of like you're being famous for being famous.
Yep.
And you're becoming a personality, which if you want to be an unscripted personality on YouTube, that's great. There's absolutely a market for that. But I think sometimes, specifically younger generations of people from growing up with all of those stars and things, forget that, like I said, you need to find that thing that you can offer the world, that
Yeah.
you are passionate about, and combine that with the ability to put yourself out there. 3, don't take it seriously. I always come back to that, is we're making fun things.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's themed entertainment or music or theater, I always find myself scoffing at people who take this stuff too seriously.
Yeah.
Because I'm making TikToks for like 18-year-olds. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
But it's not, I'm not saving people's life. Hopefully I'm adding joy to somebody's
Yeah.
life.
Which is just as important.
Which is
Yeah.
incredibly important. Or, and this is really sort of the thesis of my work, is to let people know that they're not alone. You know, I grew up, the Disney fan community was me, my brother, and my parents. I was
Mhm.
not part of any online forums. I was not part of any, I didn't watch vloggers. I watched one news thing, and that was it until I moved out here.
Wow.
Like until after college. And I have always wanted to, you know, showcase the stuff that I was passionate about, because I know there are other people that are.
Mhm.
And I know that there are other people who may feel like they're the only one who loves that. And
Yep.
and from, I think, in general, the last decade has really, in the Disney community, has really done a great job of that, of, you know, people who, you know, walk through the parks when other people can't, and be like,
Yeah.
hey, come with me and do this. Or, you know, you see, you know, people like Defunct Land or Yesterworld, or these people who are deep diving into stuff that every person in the audience is like, oh, I didn't know this, or oh, I thought I was the only one who cared about this.
Dang, I wish I
Yeah.
could have been on that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like suddenly there's this universal experience that
Yeah.
all of us in grocery stores reading trivia books about Pepper's Ghost had this experience.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
if I can add to that and sing a song from If You Had Wings that people are like, oh my God, I thought I was the only one who remembered that song. You know, if I can give that experience to people, and that's fun, you know, like just have fun with it and remember why you're doing it.
Mhm.
You know, at the end of the day, you're making music to hopefully spark joy in people, and it's got to spark joy in you before
Yeah.
it can spark joy in any others. I mean, you watch how aggressively I smile and raise my eyebrows in all the medleys, just to sort of, you know, I mean, it's theater training, but
Yeah.
you know, I hope that people get a sense of joy, because I'm having so much fun.
It's
Yeah.
true.
You know, and it's hard. It's hard, though. Every medley you see is like take 30.
Yeah.
You know, I can't believe you cannot see how much sweat is on me every time I film. But it's just fun, you know, so just don't take it too seriously, because at the end of the day, yeah.
We're supposed to have fun. All right. So as we wrap this up, Annie's going to ask you, because
Okay.
I've been asking too many questions.
No, it's been good. I've
Take
been
over.
completely enthralled with what you were saying.
You're very kind.
So, okay. So we're going to do a little bit of Disney trivia,
Oh,
because you are a self-proclaimed, oh no, I wrote it on the other paper that we don't have in front of us.
What do you need?
You have, what do you call yourself?
a human Disney encyclopedia.
The human, yes, human Disney
It's
encyclopedia.
been on my resume since
Yes.
high school.
And it's listed on your like special skills for
That's
like, your
right.
acting sheet. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, you guys did research.
I do deep dives.
That's
yeah.
great.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yes. Okay. I don't know if these are going to be easy or these are going to be hard. We're just going to see what happens. Okay.
1928.
That's not the answer to any of
Okay.
them. But
42.
Good guess. Okay. Who was the inspiration for the character Belle?
I was gonna say Mark Hen's wife, but that was Jasmine. Is it?
There's a couple different answers, but I'm
Okay.
specifically asking about like the character as a whole.
I don't think I know.
Katharine Hepburn.
Oh, that makes sense.
Wait. Yes, I think. Oh no, I think I might have gotten it wrong. So there was two. We're doing great. So there was a couple different answers. Her outfit was inspired by Judy Garland and Julie Andrews, and the actual character, it was like a combination of Katharine Hepburn and Joe March from Little Women.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I learned something.
Well
yeah,
done.
I was like,
Well
oh
done.
no, second guessed, and I
No, I'm sorry.
Just run with it. You're good.
Caitlyn is in the corner nodding her head, so yes, I'm
Yeah, we're good.
correct. Okay, number 2. What was the other Disney character who was originally considered for Fantasia's Sorcerer's Apprentice?
That I should know. There weren't that many
We
characters.
didn't
at the time.
warn him we were doing this, by the way.
No.
This is all-
This is
This is
true.
These are
pop
two
quiz.
movie questions. I want DCA questions.
I actually had some of those on the list, and I took them off.
Oh, you are. I
Give him a clue.
give me a clue.
The outfit that Mickey is wearing is a big hint to another character that wears a similar costume.
It's a big old robe.
Yes.
I mean, there weren't that many Disney things by then.
Mm-hmm.
What? So like
He also does not speak.
Dopey.
Dopey.
Good job.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah, I definitely knew that.
Okay. What movie features a villain that has never actually been seen on screen?
That's a cool question.
Yeah.
What's the general timeline? Like
Same early time.
Oh, okay. Bambi.
You're right. It
Yeah.
was Man. Yeah.
Man.
He's like one of the biggest
Enters the
villains ever,
forest.
and he's
I
never
love
actually on
whenever
screen.
there's a cosplayer as
Man.
man at
Oh,
an expo. It's just
no.
like a hunter.
Of course.
And it always takes people a second. Because you know when they
You
do
don't
like
actually know.
like photos of everybody in like cosplay or something at the
Yeah.
expos and things, and you just see a guy
in plaid
in
or something.
camo, and
Oh,
you're
okay.
like, oh, it's all it happens. I see it occasionally. It's
That's
so
amazing.
funny.
Okay. Number 4. There's 5 altogether. So
All right,
okay. What were Mickey Mouse's first spoken words?
hot dog,
It was, and that inspired the song. That's
hot dog, hot
yeah.
diggity dog.
Mhm.
And then this one I didn't know. What is the name of Donald Duck's sister?
Oh gosh, I do know this.
It was it was from the early
The
comics.
comics, yeah.
Also, it showed Mickey's sister or
Minerva.
somebody. No, I
No,
don't
that's
remember.
Minnie's name, isn't it? Who's Minerva Mouse?
I don't
There
know.
is a
Might be-
Minerva Mouse.
Yeah, you're right.
Who's Donald's sister? I thought you were gonna ask me Donald's middle name, and I was going so excited.
I mean, you can tell us that too.
Fauntleroy. I'm featured on a Disneyland trivia webisode sponsored by Honda coming out soon. That I
Ooh.
answer that
I'm
question
looking forward to
correctly.
that.
What's the first letter?
D.
Is it like Dorothea or something?
No, but it is like an early name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Della.
Oh
name
yeah.
is
Oh, I knew
Della.
that.
Oh,
I did know that.
Yeah.
because she's in DuckTales
DuckTales.
too.
Yes.
Oh my god, this is the worst I've ever done on
It's
a
okay.
Disney trivia.
He's gonna love this stuff.
Wow.
You're gonna
It was-
remember these forever now.
Well, yes.
So
On the Honda Disneyland thing, I very confidently sang the wrong words to "Nothing Can Stop Us Now,"
oh no.
and Taryn was in the back, like,
Dying.
because not only have I ridden the ride and I love the ride and I've covered "Nothing Can Stop Us Now" on
Right.
TikTok, but I worked on it as an Imagineer.
No excuses.
And I heard the song in like 2018 when we couldn't sing it.
Of course, that's how it always
Oh,
works.
no.
All right, now where can people find you?
At Noah Sunday-Lefkowitz on all platforms.
And we will have that written out in the show notes,
Lefkowitz,
so that
yes.
it's easy to find. Thank you so much for coming on. It has been a pleasure. Make
Thank
sure
you
to
for
check
having
out
me.
all
This
of
is so
Noah's
fun.
stuff because it's amazing, and you'll just be smiling when you listen to it and watch it, I think. But thank
I
you.
hope so. Thank you.
All right, that was a lot of fun, and Noah, I could talk to all day and have. And we should have him back because I think that would, when he gets to Imagineering the second time, I feel like would be a great time to bring Noah back and be like, you had this plan.
Did it work out?
How did it play out? Like, that would be a fun,
Yeah.
because who knows what it's going to be like. Also, as we mentioned before Noah, there's more Noah on the Patreon, and it is hilarious.
There's Moa Noah.
There we go. So
fine.
make sure to head on over to Patreon and check that out. You won't want to miss it. Also, make sure, if you haven't done it yet, to subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes, because we're having a lot of fun putting them together. And we've got some really awesome people that are coming in the future as well. And if you haven't listened to the ones in the past, check them out too. Also, the review thing. You want to talk about that?
About doing a review on your podcast of choice player, because anytime that you can give us a review and rate, subscribe, follow, share with your friends, it really, really, really helps us out and helps us rank higher on the podcast platforms.
What else should they do?
They should follow us on socials and like and subscribe on YouTube.
Yes.
And you're staring at me and now I'm thinking that I forgot something.
I was just listening to you, and that was great. So thank you so much for joining us in this episode of Influencing Magic, and it's made possible by dapsmagic.com, which is a safe and positive place to find Disney news, resources, and also community. Your hosts today have been Mr. Daps and Annie, with special guest Noah. This podcast is produced by the same people, Mr. Daps and Annie. Special thanks to our guest coordinator and social media extraordinaire, Caitlyn, and everybody else who helps makes this podcast possible. It is a group effort. You can find everyone's social media information in the show notes, including Noah's, which sometimes I have a hard time spelling, so that's fair. And you don't want to miss that. But anything else we got to add?
Nope. Thank you guys so much for just coming along on this adventure with us, and we look forward to new episodes with you.
Make it a great day, everybody, and keep kind.